Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of the Endless Cacophony podcast. This week we have 6 more topics for you, and the dice will decide which ones we cover. So, up first, did Space Marines just get kicked in the Gentleman's Region? If you had to survive for a year eating only one thing, what would it be and why? Eternal War versus Maelstrom. If you could scale any animal to the size of a horse, what would it be? What made you start 40k? And finally, is cereal a soup?
The Endless Cacophony podcast.
And welcome back to episode 2 of our podcast. You've heard the topics and the jingle again, because that was really good last time, right?
Jingle was amazing, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know it was going to be good, and it seemed to be okay.
It works really well.
There was no negative feedback, but also I want to remind you there was no positive feedback. So I'm just saying.
Well, genius isn't recognised, is it, in your lifetime? So
no.
people are gonna talk about that jingle in like 80 years' time.
I think you're probably right. I think people probably will talk about that jingle. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, we've got 6 more topics tonight, like we did last time, and we were a little bit like, will this format work? And actually, it went down really well. So almost all the feedback, in fact, nearly enough, every single piece of feedback I've had about the last one was really positive. So I'm really happy that this is the way to go.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it as well, didn't we?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest discussion points post the last podcast was whether people wanted to have the strength or the voice of a 5-year-old girl. So
yeah, they were getting on board with the spirit of the podcast.
Absolutely, yeah absolutely. So okay. That's about that. Updates since the last one. If you're a deploymentzone.tv subscriber, tickets are now on general sale for you if you want to come to our narrative event. There's a few left, so jump on that quickly. There's a video just went out on the website recently. You can click that video. It gives you instructions, jumps you into Discord, and then you can get your tickets. And that's about that, really. That's coming up very soon. That's the second weekend in April, so come and get involved and be involved in our narrative event. I'll be there. Chris is going to be there. Brom's going to be there. Mikey P is going to be there. So it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be super exciting.
Otherwise, there's some FAQ stuff out about Space Marines, which we might talk about tonight, because that's the genius of this podcast, is it's one of our topics. Did Space Marines just get kicked in the... Do you know, originally I wrote, did Space Marines get kicked in the dick? And I thought that might not be the right one for the title.
Yeah, and that's, we tried to keep a clean, mature podcast, so we don't want to be using language like that, right?
That's absolutely not what we do. Don't lie to people straight away.
Sorry.
Don't lie to people. So that happened recently. And also there's been some new releases about 40k stuff, new Gaz model, new Ragnar model. There's been some AOS stuff, etc. We haven't got those as our topics tonight because it's random. It's completely random. That's the whole point. So, anything you want to add, Chris, about updates?
No, just make sure you come to the DZTV narrative event, because we're going to have a really good time.
As long as you're fighting for chaos,
as long as you're fighting for the Cabal,
yes,
and for chaos, because not saying anything in particular, but just saying that chaos are the only true faction. So
at the moment, mate, the way the ticket sales are going, you might have to bring your army. And so,
oh no, you don't. You don't want that.
No, we don't. I've seen them. They're shit. Anyway. So should we stop messing around and go straight into the first topic?
Yeah, better not mess around.
Can you see my dice here? I've got my dice, my DZTV dice. I'm going to roll it now. And...
he's really rolling it, folks.
It's gone behind my beer.
Right.
Okay. Topic number 4, which is, if you could scale any animal to the size of a horse, what would it be?
Oh boy. Now, there's something... I've got a problem with this from the get-go. What is the purpose? What? There's no purpose for this. It's not like.
Of course there is.
If you could scale an animal to the size of a horse in order to achieve this purpose, which animal would it be? It's just like.
Okay. Why do we have horses? Why do we have horses? Unless you're French, why do we have horses?
We use them as work animals, don't we? Or for leisure. So we ride them.
Exactly.
So it's a rider. We're talking about rideable.
So imagine if you could scale any animal to the size of the horse and then ride it.
Well, that just completely changes the question.
Exactly.
Because that's insane.
But that's what you have to think. You don't have to just think about what do you want to be the size of a horse, but then what functionality does that bring you by being the size of a horse?
That's true.
I wouldn't want to scale a wasp to the size of a horse because they're angry fuckers anyway, right? And they're already shits, and they're the size of like a large paracetamol. I don't want it flying around stinging the fuck out of me if it's the size of a horse.
So I had a different mindset because I immediately thought about a wasp as well. And I thought, well, actually, think about what kind of weapon you'd have if you could command a wasp that's the size of a horse.
Do you really think you could command a wasp the size of a horse?
I mean, they don't seem to be very responsive to humans, but you could. There might be some kind of pheromone spray.
I've never seen a man train a normal sized wasp.
What? You've never trained a wasp?
I've never seen a man train a normal sized wasp. So what makes you think you could train one the size of a horse?
Okay, maybe you can't train. Okay, fine. We'll throw that one out the window. But there's got to be an animal that's dangerous, but is really small.
Iguana.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They're not small, but imagine having one the size of a horse that you could ride.
It's almost like a dinosaur, really, isn't it? So
yeah, you'd have like a giant
they've already
dinosaur.
existed,
and they're not that dangerous. But the size of a horse, its bite probably could be.
Yeah. A chameleon wouldn't be very good the size of a horse, though, would it?
A chameleon.
Yeah, because it would change.
Yeah, but you could steal people's cars with its tongue.
Yes, you could. I've actually seen recently.
You have not seen a chameleon lick a car. Don't lie to me.
No, not lick a car, but I saw it miss. It fired its tongue out to catch a little cricket, and it missed it, but it just ever so slightly touched the cricket on the way back, and it was so sticky it brought the whole thing in. He didn't even have to aim properly. It was amazing.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So
that idea. That's not bad, but I just think if you had a chameleon the size of the horse, I've been drinking, size of a horse. It's weird enough. Your eyes. Imagine a chameleon the size of a horse, and it's just I don't think I'd like that.
Seeing some of these things in detail. I mean, we've gone straight for a little mini beast, but seeing some of them in detail will probably take away some of the cuteness of them, right?
I'd quite like to ride a giant praying mantis. Yeah,
but again, that probably up close is going to look when it's big, it's going to look absolutely horrifying.
Again, though, I've never seen anyone train one. I tell you what, I have seen people train rats. Now imagine riding around on a horse-sized rat, because they could be pretty dangerous, right, with their bite.
Yeah, they got massive teeth, which would then be the size of like half your body.
Oh,
that would be pretty vicious. In fact, some of these animals,
I've seen some people like that.
I've seen a few. Their teeth and claws. Some of these creatures have got really weird proportions, right? So, like those little diggy things. What is it? They've got like
a mole.
Yeah, but not a normal mole. It's got like a big, horrible, like hand-shaped.
Look,
pink
we've
bit
been
on the
through
front.
this on an audio-only podcast. Your hand and face actions are inappropriate.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get you to recognise the creature by me doing this action, so you can help me out here. Because I
don't recognise it.
It's like a star nose mole.
Mole face.
Yeah, it's a
star nose mole face. That's the official name of this thing. Yeah,
that's a small creature, right? But it's got a giant chaos spawn style hand sticking out the front of its face. Those kind of things are all of a sudden going to be really intimidating when they're the size of a horse. So I don't know about this. I think you've got to be really careful.
I think you have, because you could make a fatal mistake, right? You could pick a starfish.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Well, giant starfish, but we could also pick something that's delicious to eat and then make it horse-sized so there's more of it to eat. Like a horse-sized chicken. Think of the deep fried, the southern fried chicken legs you could get from a...
Ooh.
See? Yeah?
Yeah, but do you know what it does do? Do you know what that does do, though? There's a risk there.
What's that?
It fucks up all the cooking instructions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. Like...
We'd have to learn how to cook chicken all over again.
Hour and 45 minutes in the oven, and nothing's going to happen.
Wouldn't even fit in the oven.
It's not going to fit in the oven. You're going to have to make an
oven. You have to buy a bigger barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
see,
God,
you haven't thought this through, have you?
But I've thought outside of the box as well. Because we haven't talked about things that could be bigger than a horse to begin with. So, like, you can make a blue whale the size of a horse, and you could ride around in the sea on a miniature blue whale the size of a horse.
Or like a I mean, we've got that problem where you can't breathe underwater, but fuck it, at least you can ride one.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
What about...
You could breathe it, you could put your mouth over its blowhole, couldn't you? Because that's where air comes out of its blowhole, right?
I think there's websites for stuff like that, mate. I don't think this is for this particular podcast, right?
No, I've crossed the line already.
Yeah, that's going to happen a lot, right? But you could, I mean, I didn't even think about scaling down. You could scale. You are right. You could scale like an elephant down to the size of a horse.
I knew you were going to say an elephant, but then an elephant.
How did you know? Don't lie. How did you know I was going to say an elephant?
Because I nearly said elephant. And then I thought about it because elephants are big, right? And they're cool to ride on. And I thought about it. It's like, well, an elephant is going to be the size of a horse during its growth cycle anyway, because a baby elephant
so is a blue whale.
Is smaller than a horse to begin with.
So is a blue whale.
No, maybe not.
There was a thing on the radio today, right? It was like, I listened to Absolute Radio, DAB, right?
Right, yeah.
There's a thing they were doing this morning called First Thoughts of the Day. There's a couple of them. One of them was, do you think Medusa had snake-based pubes? But the other one was, the tallest person in the world, this is what they said, right? The tallest person in the world has been everybody's height at some point. And I thought, no.
What?
Because if depending on the size he was born, if he was born bigger than other people, surely he's not their height then, right?
I don't think the tallest person in the world came out as a baby being taller than other people.
It might have been.
Well, that would probably cause quite considerable trouble for his mum to be taller than. When we say other people, do you mean, are we classifying other babies as people?
Yeah, of course we are. Babies are also people, Chris.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they should be allowed to vote. Anyway, I went off topic for the random one. Anyway.
No, I know what you mean, but there's presumably his own dad is going to be bigger than him when he's a baby.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But he'll be tall. He could be taller when he's a baby and he's born than other babies.
Right.
So if he's taller than another baby, that means at some point in his life he's not been the same height as the other baby that he's taller than, because he's not been that small.
I think we should just use the silence tool. Let's put a good minute of silence in here to let that sink in.
I just made me think this morning on the radio.
Yeah, okay.
That was my morning drive to work.
I'm still thinking about the Medusa question. That's just been lodged in the back of my head, but we'll leave that.
Keep hold of that one for later. Yeah, we could put that as a separate topic later on. That can be another topic. Okay, so let's pin in this then. Let's go. You have to pick now one animal. I want to hear what one animal you want to scale to the size of a horse and exactly why you want to do that.
Okay. Well, we've gone through so many really compelling reasons why you'd want to change an animal's size to the size of a horse. We've ruled out
which
food.
one would you want?
I know.
If you could scale one animal, which one would it be?
I'm desperately trying to think. You know what? I think I'd probably go for a bit of a wild card choice.
I'm listening.
And I think I'd go for a small member of the parrot family. Like a budgie. A conure, a cockatiel, one of those.
Do you know, right? I was thinking bird when I thought this question's going to be fired back at me, and I was thinking bird.
Yeah,
I didn't instantly think budgie or parrot family.
Yeah, but the reason why is because you become if you get the right bird and you treat it right, you get something called a bonding pair. Mm-hmm. They bond with someone, and if they don't have another bird to bond with, they can bond with a person and it becomes their like best mate. So you've automatically got that power where they're your best mate. And now they're massive. They're going to have the talons, the claws of a velociraptor. They're going to have a beak that can cut through anything, and you can ride them and they can fly around and they can talk. They might have a deep voice when they are enlarged to the size of a horse. But I think having a horse-sized parrot friend who is your best mate is the way to go with this one. Multiple uses.
Do you know what? See, I already touched on it. I was going to go bird as well.
Oh, of course,
but I thought different. I thought differently. I thought very differently to you.
Okay.
You went for a really shit bird.
Yeah, but it's got weapons
then explained
and a voice.
Scaling him up would make him cool.
Yeah,
supposedly. I went straight to eagle owl.
Eagle owl.
Yeah, an eagle owl.
Yeah, but are they close to the raptor family?
Yeah.
Well, they're notoriously dispassionate, aren't they? They're very single-minded. All they want to do is kill.
So an eagle owl, if you train an owl from a chick, one of my other hobbies that I do is falconry. If you train an owl from a chick from hatching, you can do a thing called imprint owls. And imprinting owls is where basically the owl thinks it's another human. So you get your best buddy, like he becomes your best buddy. And
Tell me
he's
more.
an eagle owl.
Tell me more.
Huh?
I want to know
exactly.
more. Yeah.
So with owls, you imprint them from an early age, and it's why owls that are trained that you see falconers using are always quite noisy because they're always shouting at you for food because they think you're another human. But imagine an owl the size of a horse, right? So you say you've got the talons of a velociraptor. I'm talking talons that are bigger than a velociraptor itself.
What, like a T-Rex?
It would be huge talons.
Wow.
Huge talons. It's got the hearing it's got the best hearing in the world. It's an owl, right? Owls, they live on hearing anyway. So it can hear anything.
Well, you
it's
can't
massively
whisper your
fluffy.
secrets, can you? You can't whisper.
You can't whisper your secrets. I'd hear them because the owl would tell me about them.
Yeah.
I don't know why this owl could suddenly speak to me, but it would tell me about your secrets.
Yeah.
And then when you ride it, also owls are mostly feather. They have like a tiny skeleton. So you'd ride the owl, it would look huge and intimidating and scary. And when it hoos, it would blow people and cars over. But because it's an owl, you could snuggle up in it like a big duvet as well. So if you needed to, like, it's like a caravan then, right? You could sleep in it.
Yeah. When it hoos, is that the sound? Do owls hoo? Is that what?
Hoo. Yeah, that's what they do.
All right. Well, I like your reasoning.
Most owls don't do twit-twoo. Twit-twoo is a specific species of owl.
Okay.
And it's a tawny owl. And if you hear twit and twoo, it's a male and female breeding pair.
All right, nerd. Jeez.
Just so you know.
I like it a lot, but there's one thing that I don't like about it, and that is, have you seen what an owl's legs look like? Like if you see an owl skeleton, or if you see an owl lift up its skirt
Chris,
of feathers.
You picked a budgie.
Yeah, but have you seen its legs? They're really, really long and spooky. Like they're actually spooky looking.
An owl?
Yeah, an owl's legs.
Yeah, but this is why I picked an eagle owl as well, because the pressure it can exert in its talons and its feet alone is just insane.
Okay.
Like I think it's the milky eagle owl can exert 3,500 psi at the point of each talon when it grips as tight as it can.
That would probably hurt quite a bit, I think.
Well, they catch their prey by crushing the skulls.
Okay.
So
you're talking about having a warlord owl, basically.
It's like your friend
with.
because it's imprinted. It's soft and cozy, so you can live in it like a caravan, and it can crush fools. That's what I want it for. Crushing
Sounds great.
fools.
It's great.
Yeah. See,
I'm just going to stick with my giant budgie. Yeah,
my
and
owl
I'm going
will
to teach
kill
him
your
to
giant
say,
budgie.
"Yeah, don't." That's not fair. That's not really nice. But my budgie would, I'd teach him to say funny things or like sing bits of songs. It'd be hilarious.
Thing is, as well, is I know owls get trained like to falconers. So your budgie, you open your front door, it's just going to fuck off.
Yeah, but I'm probably going to find it again because it's the size of a horse.
True, yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to feed it though. I'm genuinely worried about that now. I'm just thinking, wow, because seeds are going to be way too small for it at this point. Seeds are too small for me, and I'm not the size of a horse. Close.
Yeah. That's interesting because of course I'm safe with an eagle owl because they eat meat. So just eat like smaller horses or
until you forget to feed him one day and you come home and one of your children is missing. You got to be careful.
So there's that bonus as well. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Should we find another topic?
Yeah. Let's find another topic. Okay, where can we find one?
We've rolled one. Did Space Marines just... Oh, okay, so this is actually relevant as well. Brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Did Space Marines just get kicked in the gentleman's region?
Well, some of them certainly did. Topic over.
What do you mean? Some of them? They all kind of got kicked, didn't they?
They all kind of did. I'm going to stand up on behalf of Dark Angel players and just say that was short-lived, folks, wasn't it?
I genuinely, honestly, hand on heart, seriously for a minute, ignoring the beer in front of me, feel absolutely sorry for those Dark Angels players in the world that had glory for, 3 weeks?
Yeah, and not even enough time for me to finish assembling my first unit of Dark Angels.
This is, but hey, like, I love Games Workshop, right? I love 40k. I love Games Workshop. Isn't this just typical of their reactions and how they sort of change a mass rule, or they make a mass change to a rule, should I say? And sometimes I wonder, do they really think about the implications for every single faction or model or unit that that's going to affect? And in this instance, I would suggest that to some degree, no, they haven't really.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Psychic Awakening didn't come out that long ago. And now your book that you just bought, okay, it's not like the book itself was not drastically changed, but that mechanic was one of the main bits of it, right? That new mechanic for them, getting their doctrines and their own special one as well, that isn't the same as, it's not causing all of the same issues as the other Space Marine factions.
Okay, so for those of you that aren't aware what we're talking about, because some people might not be aware, if you're not a Marine player, you might not know. So Space Marines, with all the recent releases, they gained combat doctrines, and combat doctrines gives them Devastator, Tactical, and Assault Doctrine. And you always start at Devastator Doctrine, whatever. And Devastator Doctrine basically gives an additional -1 AP to all heavy weapons. You can choose from Battle Round 2 onwards to move into Tactical, or you could, I should say, move into Tactical Doctrine. And then you could stay there for as long as you wanted, and then you could choose to move into Assault. Tactical Doctrine gave you an additional AP -1 in Assault and rapid fire weapons, I think, and then and grenade maybe, and then I don't know the exact details. And Assault give you an additional AP -1 on melee weapons.
Made last cannons really horrible in the
absolutely.
First
so turn 1 AP -4 last cannons, and to be fair, they haven't gone away. But then what happened is when they released all the chapter tactics and stuff like that, each individual chapter gained an additional bonus on top of combat doctrine. So certain chapters they work in Tactical, certain chapters they work in Assault, certain chapters they work in Devastator. Now, that wasn't too bad because the player had the choice to start in Devastator Doctrine, and should he choose to, he could remain in Devastator Doctrine for the whole game if he wanted to. So if his army was one that gained a bonus whilst being in Devastator Doctrine, he probably wanted to stay there. People that play Ultramarines like Brom would choose in turn 2 almost always to move to Tactical Doctrine because the Ultramarine bonus comes in Tactical Doctrine, and he would probably hold them there for the rest of the game because that's where they shine. So that was the history in the background. What they've done in this new recent FAQ, they've changed it. And what they're stating now is you start in Devastator Doctrine, you can only stay there for 1 turn. You then move to Tactical Doctrine. You can stay in Tactical Doctrine for 1 or 2 turns, after which you move to Assault Doctrine, and that's where you stay. Now, when you're talking about Dark Angels, whose trait, whose sort of chapter buff comes in Devastator Doctrine, or Iron Hands, or Imperial Fists is Devastator as well, I think. Is that right?
Could be. I don't talk about Imperial Fists.
Imperial Fists is Devastators as well. So you're talking 3 chapters there alone that are Devastator Doctrine. They only get 1 turn of their additional bonus, and it's gone.
Yeah.
That's
horrible.
I mean, Iron Hands and Imperial Fists have been incredibly strong. Despite what I said when the Imperial Fist book came out and I reviewed it and got it horribly wrong, they've been incredibly powerful. They now can't have their bonus past turn 1. That's. I mean, Dark Ages has struggled for ages, just caught up, had 3 weeks of glory, and it's been taken away from them.
It's been taken away from them because of the way that the doctrine was abused by the other 2 chapters players, most notably the Iron Hands. So, thanks, guys.
It's really interesting that you say abused. Why abused?
Not abused.
I'm genuinely interested in the fact that you've used that word.
Yeah, no, maybe not abused, but people have found how to use that, how to exploit, let's say, that rule with spamming multiple of the same type of unit to make that rule as powerful as possible, which is fine, but it's obviously not fine because otherwise it wouldn't have been nerfed, right?
I mean, I just think that the whole the additional stratagems that they gained. So they obviously GW, when they released a new Space Marine book, they shook up a lot of the stratagems. They got rid of some of the old ones. They brought in a load of new ones that were specific to Primaris. They then gave combat doctrines. For me, personally, that's where it should have stopped. I think I've discussed this with Winters on a DZHQ as well. That's where it should have stopped. So got doctrines. You can choose what doctrine you're in, whatever. That's fine. Stop it there. When they then added the additional chapter bonus that occurs within a doctrine, that was when I think they went the step too far.
Yeah, because it's naturally it's pushing you into certain phases, and they were never going to make the doctrines even in that sense.
But I don't know how you can. I don't know how, as a company that, like I've said, caveat, right? I love the company. I don't understand as a company that does this hobby for a living. I don't understand how they couldn't see that the changes that they were making to Space Marines when they were releasing all these new rules and all these new updates was going to make them as strong. So what they've basically said in the notes that they've released with these changes, with these FAQ changes, the designers' commentary and stuff, they've basically said, and I'm going to simplify it massively. This isn't obviously what they wrote, but they basically said, "Holy shit, we realise we've made them far too strong and they're winning everything. So we need to tone them down."
Yeah.
Right. That's the long and short of what they wrote.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody knew that as well. Everyone.
No one disagrees with that at all.
Yeah.
But the way in which they've done it I feel like, obviously from our perspective as a channel and from DeploymentZone.tv's perspective, we are predominantly focused around sort of narrative stuff and narrative play.
Mm-hmm.
So actually what we've sort of seen with this change is a lot of our narrative players have been hurt because they lose some of their bonuses, and yet they weren't abusing them in the first place. And that's why I was interested when you used the word abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse is sort of a loose term, right? The rules are there to be used and people are optimizing. I don't necessarily think that's abuse as such. You're making use of the rules that are in front of you, the rules that you have. I don't know if I agree with calling it abuse as such. But to some degree it is. You're going, this is a rule that I've identified as being hyper powerful, so I'm gonna optimize everything I can just to make the most out of that. And to some degree, I guess you could consider that abuse, yes. But what we are finding is players that have never done that, they've never abused that or hyper optimized towards that particular sort of nuance in that rule, are now losing a benefit that they had. And it's just like Dark Angels is case in point, right? And the reason why we bring Dark Angels up, we've got Dark Angels Chris on DZTV. There's people in our Discord and people on WhatsApp and stuff that we know that are Dark Angels players. And their bonus when they were in Devastator Doctrine is they gained
extra range,
3 or 6 inches, depending on the type of weapon.
Range,
yeah, so depending on the type of weapon, they gain 3 or 6 inches. So assault weapons gain 3, grenade gain 3, everything else gains 6. I think pretty much. They gain that in Devastator Doctrine. So their normal chapter tactic is they can reroll 1s if they stand still. Okay, now if you want to run fluffy Ravenwing, Deathwing type lists, for example, you don't want to be stood still with bikes, land speeders, and terminators. That's stupid. So you basically write off having that whole bonus. You lose the whole bonus of rerolling 1s for standing still. The other bonus being that you can lose no more than 1 in morale, but that doesn't massively affect Marines. It can on occasion, but not really. So the other bonus they could have done with this new rules was leave ourselves in Devastator Doctrine. At least then my plasma cannons on my bikes gain an extra 3 inches, or my storm bolters on my terminators gain extra range. Well, now they only get that for a turn, and they're back to having nothing again.
It's really harsh. And it's a real
really
bad time
harsh
to have the name Dark Angels Chris as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad mine's Warsmith Chris, because mine are just always bad. But
I was about to say, I wouldn't really gloat about that too much, mate, being Warsmith Chris.
But yeah. It's I think it's a real shame. And what I think is the biggest shame about it is the timing for it. Releasing, I mean, it's a bit notorious, isn't it? It's a bit of a well-known thing that Dark Angels often get sort of kicked till last. I don't know why. First Legion, great narrative if you're into that. I am.
Wow.
And
great narrative to introduce Primaris, yeah, but go on.
Yeah. But it's just sad that they're notorious for not getting things. They got something that was actually fairly decent and fairly balanced. There wasn't anything really overpowered, I don't think, in the Psychic Awakening stratagems. It was actually quite a good update for them. And it's just gone. A few weeks later, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Some people may not have even had a chance yet to play a game with the Dark Angels with the new rules.
Yeah, some people might have all their Dark Angels models sat on their desk unbuilt. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, but that's good, isn't it? I've got my chapter master, the master here, and some veterans, and I think they might stay on their own for a little while.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, is the other thing I question, right? So the reason, so I picked the topic, right? I wrote this topic down. Did Space Marines just get kicked to the Gentleman's Region? And the reason why I wanted to do it was a couple of reasons. First of all, We're quite lucky it came up actually because it's current. So that's one of the reasons. But also, there was a massive sort of reaction to what they did, and I think they needed to address some of the rules problems that existed and some of the power that Marines were displaying, because they were categorically cleaning up at lots of tournaments, and you would see them in sort of first, second, third, fourth, fifth place.
It was a weird time as well, because it's been a while since anyone's feared power armor like that.
Yeah,
and I think it was kind of cool.
You should fear Marines.
You should, yeah. They're supposed to be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, we saw we were sharing between us the kind of rankings between our little groups and whatnot, and every single one of them was the same story, wasn't it?
Yeah. All
the top places were Marine flavors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Generally the main two, but it was all Marines. They were clearing up everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a problem, because it means that for a lot of people it's going to be a lot less fun to play against them. You want to at least feel like you've got a chance, but as I was sort of coming on to, one of the reasons for picking this topic is, have they actually been kicked in the dick on the whole? So obviously we've covered on the specific topics of Dark Angels, and yes, I think that they've suffered a little bit at the hands of this for a couple of reasons. First of all, they gained something that actually became a game long bonus should they stay in Devastator Doctrine, which they didn't really have before, with rerolling ones if you stand still, depending on your type of build, but also because they only had that for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then it's been taken away from them. So they've been hurt twice. But on the whole, take Space Marines as a generic codex. Have they been hurt that badly by the loss of this or the change to this rule? And I would argue, not really. I think we'll see a slight power shift where now, yet again, Ultramarines will become strong again, because they get to have their favourite doctrine for 2 turns. They have Tactical Doctrine for turn 2, and they're allowed to stay in Tactical Doctrine for turn 3. And turn 4, they have to move to Assault Doctrine. So they already started in Devastator. They had to. They moved to Tactical in turn 2 anyway, and they always stayed in Tactical for turn 3. I played Brom recently, and it went up on DZTV. Now, quick pause for people. There's a spoiler coming up. Brom basically tabled me after turn 3.
I was going to say, the 2 turns where the Tactical Doctrine's in play are really key turns.
So turn 1, he was in Devastator Doctrine. Turn 2, he switched to Tactical. Turn 3, he stayed in Tactical. Turn 4, there wasn't one because he'd already nailed me.
Yeah.
So this doesn't hurt Ultramarines players.
No.
Not really.
I think as well, to answer the overall question, it was the combination of the being able to stay in whatever doctrine you want and those certain supplements as well that were causing the greatest amount of power. But the whole codex overall had stepped up immensely in power. So it was made so much worse by the fact that everyone became powerful at the same time, and then there was also this upper level of power on top of that, just unbeatable lists pretty much. So all they've really done is they've just peeled back the most gamey parts of it, the kind of taking multiple of certain lots of heavy weapons for that alpha strike turn 1 ridiculous amount of power.
Do you think the what they called the chapter supplements, so the White Scars, the Raven Guard, the Iron Hands, the Ultramarines, etc. Do you think they were a step too far?
Now, no, but yes. And I'm going to try and explain. Yeah. I think it's absolutely awesome for narrative players and for people that really like a certain faction to receive a supplement that is based exclusively on their chapter or something that they like in particular. But it's not cool when it's only done for Space Marines. So what you need to do is create some kind of consistency between releases, right? It's not going to work for every army, that's fine, but there should be supplements. If you're gonna go that granular on a chapter, but not do it for the Chaos counterparts, and not do it for other armies, it would be quite easy for Tau. They could have done a Farsight supplement to go with the Tower Codex. They've done that in the past. They can, they could mix. You could split up the Imperial Guard and go into real detail on some of the main planets, but that hasn't happened. So everybody's got a slightly different set of rules than the way they release. So everyone's got access to a slightly different amount of stratagems. It was actually really weirdly highlighted in these kind of doubles tournaments where you can only, you use one. You can't both use the same stratagem unless they're in separate codexes. And all of a sudden you realise that you've got some armies now have got access to so many stratagems and so much all this new content, and it's only because they've actually bothered to go really, really deep and granular with some aspects of 40k and then not others.
This is the thing. You say that, and I agree to a point, but to sort of be even more, I guess, specific about it, they've gone really granular, but just with Marines. And even if you look at, their opposite codex, arguably, is Chaos Space Marines. You have Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. And I think, personally, the introduction of Primaris has made them too different. They're supposed to be different because they're Space Marines and they're Chaos Space Marines, but they are basically the same, where one is good and one is evil. That's by the by. We're not going to go into that depth. They did Chaos Space Marines version 2, which was literally the same codex with a couple of units added in. Okay, I'm fine. That was good. They've done the updates. They've added in all the updated stuff. That's not a problem. And then they did version 2 of the Space Marine Codex, but it wasn't actually version 2. It was a whole brand new codex, and it came with loads of supplements. Now, you cannot tell me that Ultramarines or White Scars or Iron Hands have got more lore about them than World Eaters or Emperor's Children or Night Lords. They're about the same, really, aren't they? They've been around for the same length of time. And just because one of them has stayed loyalist and one of them has turned heretic and gone down the chaos path, they've got the same amount of lore. If you can do a supplement for Iron Hands, you can do a supplement for Alpha Legion.
Oh, absolutely. And, I've got a slightly different opinion on this.
Okay.
I kind of see and I like what they're doing with the Chaos Space Marine and Space Marine divide.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes, you can still build a Space Marine army with TAC Marines and all the old Space Marine stuff, Razorbacks and Rhinos and all this kind of stuff. But you're now being given a new version, a Primaris version of everything. And slowly we're seeing the equivalent of everything that made up a traditional Space Marine army is being re-released as a Primaris version. And we may be getting bikes and things like that. And we've got like an equivalent scout unit and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Now, to me, what they're doing is they're forging Space Marines into a completely new army.
Yes,
right?
Agree.
But if you want those old things, if you want access to those older models, if you want the equivalent of tactical Marines and their playstyle, and Rhinos and Predators and all those old Space Marine things, they're all still alive as the old tech in Chaos Space Marines. And I kind of like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that Chaos Space Marines now represent what was, and they haven't moved on as such. And Primaris are this new thing, new shiny. We know that Games Workshop like to sell models, because that's how they keep going. And Primaris is a good way to do that. And if you want to play your old style thing, you can still play it with the Space Marines Codex. You're going to be missing out on all the new toys. Or you can play one of the original Legions. And if you're a Horus Heresy fan, the amount of depth you get behind your Traitor Legions is amazing. I really love all of that side of it. And if you're into it, you can have a classic Space Marine army
but this
made
is what
out
I'm
of the
saying.
Chaos Space Marine Codex.
This is what I'm saying there, Chris. If you can release a supplement around, you've just hit the nail right on the head, mate. If you can release a supplement around Iron Hands or Salamanders or White Scars or Raven Guard, you can definitely release a supplement around Iron Warriors or Alpha Legion or Night Lords, and because the Heresy eras, the original legions and their original legions have so much depth and lore that it would be so easy to release a supplement. So why is it that Space Marine players, and I'm not bitter, I'm genuinely not bitter, because I actually personally, my personal opinion is that all these extra supplements are bad for the game in terms of the gaming perspective. Now, from a narrative perspective, no question with it at all. I've got no problems with them having narrative books that are specific to chapters with narrative additions, but because of the layers of rules and stuff that it sort of brings into the hobby, the layers of stratagems and extra command abilities, not command abilities, warlord traits and psychic powers, etc., I personally think that 40k has gone from 8th edition, the most simplistic version ever, this is why everyone's coming back to, we're getting close to being the same level of complexity that towards the end of 7th was. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're not far off. If you look at Space Marines as a book, you have a generic codex. It's got 4 pages of stratagems. You then bring in your supplement with 2 to 4 pages of stratagems, additional abilities, combat. It's just too much. Now, one of the reasons why I don't necessarily think that this change to Space Marines has hurt them so bad is because I think they were so far ahead of everybody else already, including their equivalents in Chaos, that all they've been done is brought back a couple of notches. Personally, I don't know yet because I haven't seen results. I still think we're going to see them all over the top of the tables. I just do. They've got so many tools. You said it yourself with strategies. What Chris was alluding to, we went to a event recently run by one of our patrons called Brothers in Battle, where we played doubles games. And if you both took the same army, the rule for Brothers in Battle is no stratagem per army can be used more than once. If you took the same army, you had 1 codex of stratagems to use. If you took 2 armies, if you were a Space Marines player and you took Ultramarines and you were playing with a Space Marines player who took White Scars, you had 8 pages of stratagems to use. If you were Tau, you had 4 or 3. Now, I think they're so far ahead of everybody else in terms of the tools that they have to open the boxes that are in front of them, that this change to combat doctrines, like I've said, I feel sorry for Dark Angels players, but on the whole, I don't think it's going to hurt them that bad, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you might be right, but hopefully there'll be a psychological aspect of it. Once something's been nerfed, maybe people will be less into it. I don't know what the game plan is there, but I'm certainly kind of glad to see it in some respects. I just wish it had been handled a little bit better. Wish it had been case by case looked at, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
They could have. I mean, as we said, one of the key things is that these special rules were for each chapter sort of fed into certain doctrines. Perhaps maybe approaching that rather than approaching which doctrines you can use and when would have been a better approach. I'm not sure. I'm sure a lot of thought goes into these things. But I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of the new Space Marines. I'm a big fan of Primaris, and I know that's kind of not a super popular opinion all the time at the moment, and I do really like what they've tried to do with it. Before the Primaris, the latest Space Marine Codex update, any army that I had, Chaos, Necrons, Tau, that I'd take against Space Marines, I always knew it would be a fairly even game or not even game. Maybe I'd stand quite a good chance of winning. And I thought I wanted Space Marines to be better because they should be better. And they gave us that. They just overshot the mark by
they
quite
fucking plowed straight through it, didn't they?
No,
I 100% agree with you. I was the same.
Yeah.
Like playing against Brom, so Brom on Warhammer and DZ, playing against Brom, I felt sorry for that bloke, not because he's completely tactically inept, that's a whole different point, but because he would run a fully Primaris army, for example, because he loves the new Primaris stuff and he adores
looks great
it,
on the table as well.
Each their own, his army looks good. But when we played a no command point reroll stratagem game at one point on one of the channels, because I like no rerolls, and he had nothing. He had no tools he could use because he'd built a completely Primaris army, and all of his stratagems were focused around units that aren't Primaris. So he had a really bad time, and he couldn't. And we had to basically halfway through the game go, you know what? I'm revoking this rule because you've got nothing you can use at all. Now, what they've done, so I'm the same as you. Like, they needed to power up Space Marines. I've got no questions about that whatsoever. However, in my personal opinion, they went, here's the fucking line, and we're going to shoot about 27 miles past it, and that's where we're going to set up our camp as where the new Marine strength is.
Yeah, they basically just put their foot on the accelerator, drove towards the line, closed their eyes, and then when they opened them again, the line was smashed to pieces back there.
Oh yeah,
and
through.
They crashed into a tree.
Yeah, but that's what they did. And this is what I mean. This change, I think I agree with you. I think case by case basis, it's unfair on some chapters, and it's more fair on other chapters, and some aren't hurt as much by it as others. So I've got no questions. I've got no qualms with that. I agree with you completely on that one. I think that's right. Like, Dark Angels players have been really hurt by it. Ultramarines players have barely suffered by it. Iron Hands probably don't really care about it, to be quite honest. So on the whole, because it affects everybody differently, I think it's an unfair change. And yet I still think that with this unfair change, they are still going to be somewhere near, if not top of the tree, in terms of strength and power. I still, with this change, if I face Brom again tomorrow with his Ultramarines, I'm still going to fear him almost as much as I did, because he's still going to have turn 1 Devastator. He's still got turn 2, turn 3 Tactical, and those first 3 turns are where he does the majority of his damage with the new rules. Iron Hands, with their new rules, stratagems, abilities, etc., do they really care if they lose Devastator Doctrine? Actually, not that much.
No, it's not
really
too bad.
bothered. So I don't think this change has really kicked them in the gentleman's region as much as perhaps some people have. Maybe
a mild
from
massage, maybe a
a gent fondling.
Yeah, but just with a little pinch.
Yeah, a little gentle rub.
Yeah.
With sandpaper. But yeah, some people will feel it worse. Like, people that we know who play Dark Angels, they're going to feel like it's more of a kick in the balls, especially if they've gone and bought a load of stuff. And 3 weeks later, that changes.
I've got a message. I've got a message for Dark Angels players. Right. So the message is this: you don't need Devastator Doctrine. You don't need a wall of Hellblasters and tanks with multiple las cannons sitting at the back. All you need is a bunch of angry emo bikers and a big old chunk of classic Deathwing Terminators sat up in the teleporteriums, and you bring them down and you do it the old way. Okay. You know, you are the gap between Chaos and the Imperium. You are the old school
Deathwing Terminators, Chris, that now set up in the teleportarium because they have to come in turn 2, literally have no benefit at all.
Yeah. You don't need benefit because you've got Deathwing Terminators. And they not only do they look cool, they've got a cool name. They might get absolutely wrecked on the battlefield, but you know what? What are you playing this game for? You want to win?
3 Vindicators looking out for you, mate.
I never win, and look at me.
Yeah, in your dressing gown.
I've got a dressing gown on right now, yeah.
It's a strong image, mate.
Yeah,
there's
and
an exercise, there's an exercise bike in the background that I don't think has ever been used in its life.
I just use that for hanging clothes on, mate.
Yeah. Okay, so to summarise this particular subject, did Space Marines just get kicked in the gentleman's region? I mean, to a degree they did. I think more from a principle perspective than anything else. But I think from an absolute competitive level, they've been wound back slightly, but I still think they're going to be exceptionally strong. I think it's still going to be a really powerful army to play against.
I think we need to see what, as the results come in from the next season of things, then we'll really know where we
This is something we could potentially revisit in like a couple of months' time to see if it had the desired effect, or whether we were right and it didn't have as much of an effect as we thought, or whether maybe they wound it back too far. I agree with what you're saying. I think that a case-by-case basis would have been a better way of attacking it, but we don't tend to see that from Games Workshop, do we really?
No, not really.
It seems to be that it's easier for them to do a more generic fix. I mean, the real basic fix for it was not release all these stupid fucking separate chapter books in the first instance. But they're not going to do that now, are they? Because they've already sold them all.
Yeah.
Hey.
We nearly set him off, folks, but not quite. So
no, I'm going to restrain. I've had a few beers now, and if I go, I just won't stop. And I've got work tomorrow night. So we've done 2. We've got time for another one, right?
Yeah, we do.
We've got time for another one?
Yeah. Let's
my dice of power.
Let's take a quick break.
Oh, okay. Why?
Because I need a wee.
What I love about this podcast is you don't actually need to tell everybody that you need to go for a wee or that we could take a quick break. You just put your hand up and I can see you and I could just have ignored you completely for a minute. You could have gone to the toilet, could have come back. I could have edited it out. No one would have known any different.
Well, you still don't have to. You can still cut.
Now everybody knows you went and got your little todger out and had a little wee.
I thought we got the concept of editing.
Nah,
just gonna roll with it.
Just gonna leave that in, yeah.
Fuck it.
Right, we've got the dice of power. We're re-rolling results of a 1 and a 4. Have you got any specific topic you'd like to talk about, do you think? Have you got a preference? Do you want to go 40k or non-40k? We're letting the dice decide, so you haven't got a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, a preference.
I mean, right now, I could go for a bit of either, really.
Okay, I'm going to roll a dice.
Let's see what we get.
We have a 3.
Ooh.
Eternal War versus Maelstrom.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
There's been a lot discussed on this over the years.
There has, actually.
There has.
Do you have a preference?
Yeah.
Go on.
And it's okay. So it's one of those things that when you're playing Maelstrom, you can quite often find yourself angry at they're not the dice gods, they're the card gods, aren't they?
Card gods are a new thing, yes.
Yeah. They can really ruin a game for you, right? You can draw out and it can be, there's nothing you can do. And you lose because your opponent has drawn somehow the absolute perfect cards and then you draw the objectives that are at the very back of their battle line and,
yeah.
that they've got
quite
their
literally impossible. Yeah.
But if you're playing for narrative, if you're playing a fun game for narrative reasons, why do you care? Because you're both playing with those same odds. You're both playing with the same rules. It's a dice game. It's got an element of randomness to it. If you want to, like in the battle reports that we do, it's always posed as these are the commander's orders, right? This is what's coming down from the battle barge above. They want this. And then that's what you should be aiming for. Now, those automatically generated things might seem impossible, but it can guide you in a direction if you want to play narrative and you're playing not for the absolute best outcome, but you're playing to follow this narrative that you're playing. Like my guys have got to go right into the heart of the enemy and capture objective 5, even though it's unlikely. Most people don't play that way, and most people don't like that. That's when Eternal War gives you that kind of everyone's on a level playing field, everyone knows what they've got to do. There's still certain things, depending on what mission you play, that can totally screw you over, but not anywhere near as bad as drawing from a random deck of cards. So we tend to play Maelstrom a lot down at my local club, and what we do is we just kind of sometimes agree to just chuck cards aside when we draw them if they're ridiculous. Sometimes. Depends who I'm playing with. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because basically in what you just talked about, you've sort of touched on bare bones Maelstrom and bare bones Eternal War. Now, from my perspective, I've played 8th edition since the start. I've played 7th, 6th, 5th, and I even played 4th. I definitely loved the introduction of Maelstrom as a system compared to Eternal War for a number of reasons, because it meant that if you were outmatched by an opponent, if they had a significantly stronger list than you, there was another variable in there, i.e., as you mentioned, the random cards, that not only could mean you play the mission differently to how you might normally want to play, or force them to do that, because they might not want to push their units forward because they might be full of heavy weapons, but they might be forced to gain points. Or alternatively, you're playing LR jet bikes, you're more inclined, or you've got more ability to jump from objective to objective. It added another dimension in that allowed you to beat a player who perhaps at that stage had a stronger army than you, or whatever, because it forced you to do things or them to do things. So I liked that for Maelstrom. How I will evolve what I'm talking about is Games Workshop have clearly realised that both original Eternal War and original Maelstrom were flawed. And the reason why I say flawed, the reason why I say that is because in the subsequent chapter approves that have come out, they've evolved said missions.
Oh yeah.
So if you look at chapter approved 2018, the big change to Eternal War, which I 100% love, is the fact that you score points more often than not now at the end of battle round or start of turn. Okay,
that was a huge change, and it was really good.
Yeah, so up until that point, up until that change, I would almost always say that I preferred Maelstrom to Eternal War, because I'm not complaining. I am complaining a bit. I don't want to sound like I'm whinging, but often on a 40k games nowadays, specifically competitively, it's a turn 1/2 dick kicking contest, and after turn 1 or 2 has happened and you've blown your load all over your opponent, the intent at that point is that they don't have much left. So if you're playing a game that requires you to get to the end of turn 5 to score your points, I mean, quite often you don't get to the end of turn 5 and you can't score your points. So introducing scoring points at the end of each battle round or turn or beginning of your turn, or whichever the variability might be, means that there is, and I've played these types of games recently where you can race ahead in scoring points, early on, and then you still get the living granny smashed out of you by your opponent, but because you've raced ahead in points, they have to focus on what they're doing to try and claw that deficit back. So even though they might table you or they might kill your models or destroy your army, actually it's a points game. Equally with Maelstrom, the big issue for me was I've drawn a card that I cannot do. So I have no Psykers in my Eternal Slaughter army, and I draw a card that says Master the Warp. Now, you're right. Friendly games between people that I know, I'm going to draw that card and people are going to go, yeah, bin that. You don't need that, mate. Get rid of that completely. However, in games that are mildly competitive or pickup games, someone might go, sorry, no, the chance you take by not taking a Psyker is that you might not be able to do that card. Now, GW addressed this in Chapter 2018 because they allowed you to go through your deck and remove, I don't remember the number, I think it might be 6, but remove a number of cards.
There's a little bit of deck building in it, yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, so you still can't. I mean, honestly, if we could all look at the cards and look at them all and go, there's what, 6 sixes, so 36 cards. We could all look at our cards and go, actually, I could quite happily ditch 10, and they don't let us do that. They let us ditch 6. But you can look at that one and go, I can't do Master. I physically cannot do Master the Warp. I'm going to get rid of that. Actually, I'm playing an opponent that doesn't have any Psykers, so I can't kill a Psyker or a Flyer, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I think taking that slither of random out, and it's still random, you're still drawing from another 30 cards.
Yeah.
So it's still completely random draw, but by taking that out, I think at that point, they remove some of that hyper randomness that exists. It's still random, to make that a little bit more balanced. So subsequently, I think now, if I am honest with you, I prefer the latest Eternal War missions over Maelstrom. Okay. I don't know why. I prefer those because it removes some of the random that exists. If you talk about original missions, I definitely prefer Maelstrom over Eternal War, because it's every turn scoring and it forces people to do other stuff rather than cast up on an objective until turn 4 or 5 and then push out. So yeah, it's weird. I think old missions, Eternal War, old missions, Maelstrom, new missions, I seem to lean towards more the newer Eternal War missions.
So I've got a question for you about Maelstrom.
Mm-hmm.
In a game where there's obviously a lot of random chance, which is Warhammer as a whole, it's a dice game. There are things you can do to put the odds in your favour. Do you think adding that extra layer, what is it, do you think, about the card system that really brings something to the game or makes the game something that you can play competitively or in like a tactical sense when you don't even know what your objective is? how do you think? Do you think that's the right thing for the game? Do you think Maelstrom is the right kind of way to play a game like this?
I think that depends on your requirement, intent, stroke desire from 40k. I think if you're playing competitively, if you want to play 40k more competitively than others, and I don't mean turn it into the world's biggest esport, or I mean if you're the sort of person who is more likely to want to go to events, perform well, maybe try and rank in the ITC, that kind of thing, I don't think Maelstrom's the right answer. And I mean, if you look at the ITC, they don't use Maelstrom at all. They have their own ITC format, which is predominantly, if you look at it a little bit, it's like some of the more recent Eternal War missions Games Workshop have brought out. So in that regard, I don't think there's any benefit to Maelstrom cards at all, because you're right, okay, it's a random card. You can't... Some of the world's best players who don't play for narrative stuff, they have game plans, they have sort of processes, they have combinations that they build, they know their army inside out, they know what they want to do, they can take a game plan to an army, they can adjust their game plan because they've got multiple game plans. If they're ITC, they build to get some of the ITC secondaries, they build to deny some of the ITC secondaries. They have strategy throughout their whole list building process, all the way through the playing process. They have that strategy. I think with Maelstrom, it's almost impossible to plan for. It's impossible to plan to be able to score at least every single one of 30 cards.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do it. It's impossible. There's too many variabilities. You also rely on your opponent to have the right stuff. You have to have the right... It's just impossible.
So do you think
in that regard,
what it's doing there is it's giving you a direction for a game, but without... Is it pushing the focus to the actual playing of the game? Do you think it's giving the focus to rolling dice and having fun with a friend, moving models around, shooting, but giving you some direction at the same time? Because it's taken out so much of that element of pre-planning.
I think Maelstrom is designed, for me, I think it's designed more to encourage... I'm probably going to use the wrong word and upset some people here, because I don't want to upset people that play tournaments, but I think it's there to encourage more fun in the game, because you might pull a card that you just didn't want to do. It might encourage you to do something different to what you wanted to do. You might make the conscious choice to actually completely ignore that card and do the thing that you were doing anyway. And because it adds that sort of random nature to it, I think it gives two gamers, you and I, if we could play my army versus your army, Eternal War, I don't know, Big Guns Never Tire. We could play that game 5 times in a row. And there's a possibility, dice rolling aside, if we all had average dice rolls, there's a possibility we'd end up with a similar or same sort of result over 5 games.
Mm-hmm. Especially based on the list and stuff who're taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. You introduce a random deck of cards that you have to draw 3 cards a turn every turn from. That infuses so much variability into a game that you then end up with a multitude of different potential results from those 5 same games, just because you have that random nature. So if you're playing with an opponent regularly, I think having Maelstrom as a format is excellent, because the cards alone can make each game so different. Then when you add in the variability of dice rolling and how that works, you just have such amazing amounts of possibilities as to what could happen in a game because of the cards.
So basically it lends itself to narrative play. And if you play with some mates who are in the spirit of it, will always try and score. Will always try and score what's on the cards and not avoid it and just go for tabling you or whatever, even though they've put in some things for that. It's nudging you in a narrative direction then. Is that what we're saying for Maelstrom?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I've played games where the cards have encouraged someone to go for the tabling, because they have raced ahead in the first 2 or 3 turns, and there's such a deficit in points that you go, well, actually, the only way I can beat you now is by trying to smash you off the board. And they force you to make those kind of decisions, the cards do. But otherwise, I completely agree with you. I think they do, in my opinion, I think they do tend to lend themselves more towards narrative type play. I think there's a more fun, random element to them. And again, you are right. It depends on how you, and what spirit you take it, because you could be the sort of person who draws What's the one where you have to score every single objective? Supremacy, is
Supremacy or domination? No,
dominant.
one of them hold 3, one of them hold them all.
Yeah, whichever one says hold them all, you pull that one in turn 5 when you've got fucking 3 units left. You could be the sort of person who goes, for why the... Or you could go, well, I can't do that. So what can I do this turn to set myself up for the next turn or whatever? You know, I think so. I do think you're right. I think you have to take it in the right spirit.
Yeah.
But I don't think Maelstrom lends itself to competitive play. And I think the ITC proves that. But I think it's an excellent system. Yeah.
The weird thing is, after saying that, is that I'd say for a lot of the casual games I play, like really casual games, especially if I'm picking up a game down the club with someone I've not played before, we quite often go straight in with a sort of pre-decided Eternal War mission.
Oh, really? Why?
It's weird, isn't it? Especially if we're playing with new armies as well. It's the... We like to play... I don't know which chapter approved it's in. There's the 6... It might even be the core rulebook, sorry. The 6 objectives, and you roll a dice to see which one or whether all of them are worth double.
Vital intelligence?
Yeah, we call it murder ball. But yeah. That seems to come up more often than not because it's... it allows you to focus on the game at hand and your rules rather than trying to focus too much on playing these cards. I totally agree that actually Maelstrom is a lot of fun because of the random element of it, right? It's annoying, really annoying, but it's also really fun because it also... This is a subtle side effect of it as well, right? There is an element of salt in the Warhammer world and the world of gaming, right?
Yeah.
Maelstrom adds an element to it where you can kind of turn around to yourself and say, well, it wasn't really my fault that I lost. And it wasn't really there. You know, it allows both people to enjoy the game, someone to win, and the loser doesn't have to feel so bad because they weren't completely outplayed. They can, you know, whether it's purposely designed that way or not, it doesn't really matter. But I think giving people the opportunity to blame the draw of a card on something is also quite good for keeping tension down to a certain extent.
This absolutely harks back to a statement you made a minute ago, though, where it depends on in which spirit you take it.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you, and I think you're right. Like that, there is a degree of that. You could sit there and you can go, okay, the cards are against me tonight. I've given it my best shot. I was never going to win with those cards. Brilliant. I've had a good fun or whatever. You see it anyway, right? You don't even need Maelstrom. You see people that will grab a handful of their own dice and throw them across the room.
Yeah.
Because it's the dice's fault that they're losing. It's not their fault. It's got nothing to do with them. It's the dice's fault that they're losing, and it's always the dice's fault. And you probably have already found this. I'm sure talking to the good people listening to this, a lot of people already had the same experience. There will be those people that you know in either your local gaming group or club or your group of friends or whatever who just happen to somehow have the worst dice in the world. No matter what pack they buy, no matter where they get them from, it's always the dice's fault. Right? Those people exist. And if you have that same attitude towards Maelstrom cards, you're right with what you said. It's just going to be a bit salty. It's not going to be... But if you take it the right way and go, you know what? I had a bad hand. I did my best. I had a bad hand and I didn't win. I got close, but I wasn't... Like, the cards were hard for me. That's the right way of taking it, I think.
Well, it lets both... My point was it lets both the winner and loser... read the randomness however they want. So the loser can say the winner had a lucky draw, and then the winner can turn around and say, yeah, you sucked and I played really well, but it's fine, you know. And by the way, I do have I do encounter I do have stop looking at it. I do have unlucky dice. And sometimes you just have to get rid of the... Like, if you're going to do a reroll, you should really change the dice because it might be cursed, the one that you've been rolling. And one of the things you don't do is speak ill of the dice gods. That's a bit of advice for everybody out there.
The dice gods can suck it.
Right, your next game, check it out.
My next game is against you on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Let's see what happens, shall we?
The card gods can also suck it.
You've done it. You curse yourself, mate.
Nope.
Don't get all salty and upset when you've...
Nope.
All right, fine.
Nope.
You heard it here first.
Well, there you go. So and honestly, I think they're both good systems. The topic, Eternal War versus Maelstrom, I think actually, rather than saying that I think I prefer one, I think I could probably surmise it from my perspective as I prefer one over the other depending on what it's for.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So for narrative, for chill out, for fun, I absolutely love Maelstrom. I think it's brilliant. For more competitive type stuff like events, tournaments, I think I probably prefer the latter forms of Eternal War. So like Chapter Approved 2018 onwards.
It definitely lends itself to that, especially with the newer scoring system. I fully agree with that.
So I think they're both great systems, and I think if we got rid of one of the systems, we'd suffer for it. I think we need both. I think we need both of them in our lives, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would argue that I think we need a more specifically tournament focused style of play. This is a whole different topic that I'm not going to go into in depth right now.
We can throw this in there actually in our topic list.
But you look at we've mentioned it a few times now. For those of you who don't know, the ITC, the International Tournament Circuit, I think it stands for. The ITC have their own format of missions that they play for tournaments, and it's all the same. It means everyone plays the same mission, everyone plays the same type of mission, no matter what the event is. If you're playing full ITC format, they have a set of primary objectives, a set of secondary objectives. You pick your secondaries. You can pick, I think, up to 3. And basically, you're already thinking about secondary objectives when you're at the list building phase, because you're either going to be allowing yourself a higher opportunity to score certain secondary objectives, or giving your opponent or restricting your opponent from scoring certain secondaries. So that ITC format is excellent for tournament play. I will categorically say I've played ITC. Okay. I've played full ITC format a few times. I will categorically say if you're in it for the fun of the narrative, ITC format's not for you.
I'm going to throw in a spanner here.
Okay.
This might sound completely crazy.
Yeah.
What you said was correct just then. However, I have played the ITC rules in a casual game.
Really?
Yeah. We thought we'd try it.
Okay.
And I took my army down and we went through. I picked Butcher's Bill, I think it's called, or Butcher's Tally or whatever.
Butcher's Bill is number of units killed, I think.
Butcher's Bill. I picked a few things, and old school, which is you can score like line breaker and stuff. And I was playing against Harlequins, and he took the mission where you have to hold or have something in each quarter of the board and whatnot. We had a really good game, and we weren't trying to kick the crap out of each other, and we didn't have tournament lists as such, but we played the ITC rules, and actually it turned into a really fun and balanced game because we each were playing to the strengths of our army and knew what we had to shut down from our opponent. And I think you should give it a go in a more casual setting, because it actually was very surprising how much more balanced the game felt than if I was drawing cards.
Do you know what, mate? That could be a challenge to the listeners. Like, that genuinely could be a challenge to the listeners. If you haven't played ITC format before, the mission packs and stuff are really easy to find on Google. They're free. Go get hold of them. The next time you play, if your opponent agrees, get hold of them, give it a go, and feed back to us either in the comments below on YouTube, the comments on Podbean or whatever. Feed back to us your experience, especially if you're not the sort of person to play competitive play. If you're like a narrative player, you normally, which is the sort of people that listen or watch us anyway. If you're a narrative player, give it a bash just once, and let us know whether you think it was a good, fun, balanced game, or if you think actually no, it just sapped all the fun out of it for us or whatever. Have a look at them. They're not that complicated. Me and Brom were able to play it, so they can't be that hard.
There's an app you can get, the ITC app, and it's got all the rules. You can literally pick everything in it and score it as you go and keep track of it. I think it's
called ITC Battles.
Yeah, ITC Battles. Yeah. That's it. That's what we used for it. It's all there. It's easy, but yeah, you have to play it not in the spirit of tournament play. So take your normal list down that you play at a games club, unless you're that kind of guy that takes a power list down. But yeah, take it down, try playing it, and pick your missions based on the strengths of your army. Make sure your opponent knows what they're picking and picks it based on the strength of theirs, and you'll both know exactly what you're going to be doing and what you should be denying, and it can be really fun. So yeah, that's my bit.
I think people should give it a go. Let us know what you think. just because I'm interested to know. Also, if you have a preference, Eternal War versus Maelstrom, let us know in the comments below as well. It's something that I've always... I think there's a place for both, and I think therefore, at the moment, I think there will always be a place for both. I'd be interested to know people's experiences. I know there are people out there that will say, no, Maelstrom every single day. I just prefer Maelstrom, it's better. I know other people are the opposite, no, Eternal War for simplicity. So let us know. In turn, also let us know what you think about the updates to Space Marines. Obviously, we've covered that tonight as well. I don't think they're going to suffer that badly from this. I think they're going to suffer a little bit, but I still think they're going to be super strong. So let us know what you think about that one. And finally, make sure you also tell us which animal you would scale to the size of a horse.
Yeah. And if you're a Dark Angels player, feel free to write your tales of woe. And we'll, give you a thumbs up and send you our sympathies.
Oh, no, I won't fucking read those. Okay. And that's like a good... Jesus, we've done it again, man. It's like another good hour's worth of content.
Yeah, that's because we just love spending time together. That's why.
That's why we're doing it in completely different houses, like 70 miles apart. Just so I don't have to smell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
that was good.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. We've killed 3 topics again, same as last time. I think we might be finding a sweet spot for topics about 3 topics.
About 3, yeah. We don't have an outro jingle, so I was thinking.
No.
I was thinking maybe I could play us out again.
In a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
In a minute, prep yourself for it.
Okay.
Because I have to do my outro bit.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because much as this is more of a dick around podcast than before, I still feel like I should do that. I basically stopped doing all this at the intro because it was probably boring people after they've heard it the 4,000th time. Just do it at the end now. But hey, if you guys have enjoyed this, episode 1 is already on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. So you can check it out at any of those formats that I've just mentioned and give it a listen. That's episode 1. It's literally called episode 1. From this episode onwards, we're going to name it after one of the questions that we've talked about because I just think that would be funny. So we're going to probably pick the one about scaling something the size of a horse this time around, because why not? Yeah, it's got to be done, isn't it? Otherwise, if you do like the sort of thing that Chris and I have put out tonight, you can think about joining us at deploymentzone.tv. So that's more about battle reports and stuff more than anything else. But there is DZHQ videos, which is where Winters and I sit and talk nonsense about 40k. There's tutorials, behind the scenes, vlogs, painting tutorials. There's all sorts of stuff, campaigns, etc. So if you check out www.deploymentzone.tv and you can subscribe to us for a monthly fee of just $4.99 at the moment, and come and watch all of our content. Alternatively, if you don't want to watch our videos, we also have a Patreon page, which is patreon.com/DZTV, and you can come and be a member of our community. It gives you access to our Discord server, which is massive and huge and busy and full of hobby all the time. So if you don't want any more video content, but you do want to be a member of a community like that one, you can come and join us via Patreon. Basically, there's loads and loads of ways to support the channel. Obviously, this is our new podcast format. This is just the second one we've done like this. I think they're brilliant. Chris is nodding at me, so I think he also thinks they're brilliant.
They're brilliant, aren't they?
And I like to drink in beer this time as well, although I think some of my words didn't quite come out right. But.
Yeah. Oh, I've just smashed my face on the microphone. So
watch you do it as well.
Maybe I should. Maybe I should hold on the booze next time.
But equally, let us know what you think about these. The feedback from the first one was incredible. So yeah, just keep it positive because I don't want to hear negative shit.
No. Keep your opinions to yourself unless they're good. Unless
they're really good and you think they're brilliant. Yeah. And tell us all about it. That's about that. We will start, I'd imagine soon actually, we're probably going to start taking suggestions for both sensible and silly topics. We might not use them, but we'll take suggestions because Chris and I have got a shared note that we're basically putting stuff in there from, and we make sure that every single week we're going to draw 3 sensible and 3 silly suggestions.
Yeah.
Now, so far, Chris, the 40k fans have been lucky because we've had 2 hobby, 1 silly each time.
That's right, yeah.
I'm also thinking I'm going to rebrand it ever so slightly to a hobby podcast, not a 40k podcast.
Yes, and there is
that
a
way
reason.
we can cover AOS, we can cover bolt action, we can cover anything else we like, right?
Yeah.
So that's what makes sense as well. Perfect. Anything you want to add before we do your amazing, top-notch, X-Factor worthy jingle?
Well, first of all, I'm deliberately not thinking about it, so it's just got to come out. Whatever comes out is the jingle. No, just make sure you tune in because we are hilarious.
It's going to be the biggest 40k podcast. Well, it's going to be the biggest hobby podcast in the world.
And if you like
in about 6 months, biggest hobby podcast in the world.
Yeah. If you like Age of Sigmar content, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about it as much as I can.
Yeah. You love it, don't you?
Yeah, I bloody love it.
You do love it.
I do love it, yeah.
Cool. Okay, are you ready for it?
Okay. Are you ready?
Do you need a drum roll or are you ready just to go?
Here it comes. Thank you for listening, my dears, to the Endless Cacophony podcast.
Brilliant. That was just brilliant. I don't know how you simply work in IT because you've missed your calling in life.
I know.
Right, cool. Thanks very much for listening. Do you know what? Last week, actually, this is important. Last time I said, see you in the next one. We don't see people in the next one.
We don't see anybody, no. It's actually really lonely.
And I can't say hear you in the next one because they don't talk to us.
No. So you'll hear us in the next one.
So thanks so much for listening and stay tuned for the next one.
Yeah, stay tuned. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I ruined his outro. Do it again, Liam. Go on.
No, you've ruined it. You've fucked it for me. I'm just clicking off now.